Welcome to the Cynical Marketers podcast, where the greatest minds in marketing, we think, discuss marketing for an audience of several. And now, your hosts, Mike and Nada. Hey everybody, welcome. Episode 8 of the Cynical Marketers. This week, we're talking about chaos, managing your businesses and marketing specifically through chaotic times, whether it is out in the world or within your own business. You know, these things come up, things happen, whether it's politics or what, and it's crazy. And we're not political. If you came here for a political fight,
I was going to say, we need a disclaimer. We're not talking politics on this podcast, but we can acknowledge that we are working with businesses who are a little bit concerned about their operations right now. And we've been through those times during
businesses for sure. So we're not political. Sorry if you came for that fight. I know it's supposed to be the rage, and this would be a great way for us to get engagement and grow our fan base from.
We don't want that though. No, we're not doing the rage bait. Let's be honest. We did a whole episode on that. We're not doing that. We're not falling for that trend.
My thought has always been for businesses too is like, you can do that, but why? There's so many other places people can go for politics and discussion from experts and people who think about it and work in it all day long.
That's
you
not
don't want
us.
to hear from me.
So we'll talk about marketing during we'll talk about marketing during crisis times though. Let's talk about
during crisis for sure, and upheaval and change, and I know, so that's kind of the concern for some folks right now. And some of the businesses that we are dealing with, because we deal a lot in e-commerce and clothing, direct consumer clothing has been a majority of both of our backgrounds. And so a lot of those brands, import things, and there's this tariffs on, are they off, whatever, you don't know. And that's kind of the uncertainty for a lot of these businesses. You don't know. The people in the White House changes hands from party to party, rules change, every 4 years, 8 years, whatever. And now there's this level of uncertainty that comes in. And now people are like, and we had a business actually tell us this just within the last several days.
Right.
Our market is pretty volatile right now. We're not sure what's going to be happening moving forward, so we're going to pull back on marketing.
Yep.
We just had a business tell us this. And, look, we're empathetic. And I know from our own perspective, it's like, look, I like to be paid to do marketing because that's how I put food in my mouth and I pay my bills with that stuff. So I don't like having someone tell me they're going to pull back on marketing. But
also, what a terrible idea. Right. So let's be honest. Let's just kind of say it how it is. Pulling back on marketing during uncertain times is an easy way. And you've said this a million times before, Mike, right? Like marketing tends to be where finance goes to cut cost, right? In a lot of businesses we worked for, anytime there is kind of some uncertainty going on, some maybe customer service issues, whatever that may be. It may not even be political or, related to like COVID type things we've all survived and lived through. Finance goes to marketing to cut cost because it's the fastest, easiest place to cut cost. But, what a terrible idea. Just awful idea.
And it is that. It's so easy, because a lot of businesses, if they get in trouble or, as revenue goes up, their other fixed costs tend to go up too. They're going to get bigger offices. They start getting space. They buy equipment to do blah, blah stuff, right? So then their fixed costs start rising too, as if your sales are always going to still go up. They never think about that. And then it's like, hey, we can't do anything about that stupid decision we made on that 5-year lease for this huge facility. But I can cut our Google spend right now. I can do that right now. That's the only thing I can do anything about, so that's what I'm going to do. And then, you cut the thing that was driving your revenue.
Right.
And I think we've seen this, CFOs, VCs. VCs love this. You don't need to spend so much on marketing.
For sure.
And I've had this argument with a VC group, like, do you understand what direct response marketing is? I don't think you do. It's direct response marketing. We can look right at it and show you that when you spend this $1, here's the revenue that comes in.
Here's how many dollars you make
why do you think the revenue is going to keep coming?
It's really interesting to me because when we were kind of discussing this before this episode, before we decided it would be an episode. We were trying to find an example, one example of a business that cut marketing cost and made it through and actually thrived as a result. And we could not find a single one. I think that really what we kept coming up against was businesses who cut marketing and didn't make it, right? Which is a lot of businesses who didn't survive the pandemic, 4 or 5 years ago. I think JCPenney is the first one that came to mind. They decided that they were going to kind of cut down on their marketing during COVID. And then, they halted that. And then what happened? Target, Walmart, Kohl's stepped in and they were like, all right, we got you. We got the customers.
That's what happens. And I'm sure if, 4 or 5 people listen to this episode, there's probably some individual examples out there. You can, right. I think the one thing you can do if you're going to cut your marketing, and if it's for a short term, you can survive if you have a very strong email list. You might be able to survive.
Retention
you
efforts
can lean on your email list for a bit, but only for a bit. Like you cannot beat up your email list then and think this is the thing that carries me forever. No. But if you have a good solid email list, it can spell you for a bit. But the problem you have once you start cutting, like you just mentioned there, what Target did and the other competitors, when JCPenney's pulled back and they create this gap in the market space, your competitors fill it. Somebody else will step in. And then when you do, if you think like, hey, we just need to make like 30 days, take a little breather here, just because you turn it back on in 30 more days, it doesn't mean you're going to get back to that spot. Somebody else might have stepped in, and now what? And then you see this problem for businesses typically when they turn their marketing down a little bit and then their sales drop a little bit. And they're like, well, we're making less money now. We're in more of a cash crunch. We got to still save more money. So let's turn our marketing down a little bit more, and then sales come down to meet that. And then you just start spiraling down and you will chase it to the bottom.
Right.
Until you close your doors.
Or what I've seen businesses do is reactively, if they have to cut down on acquisition marketing, they will focus on those retention efforts. But after a while, like you said, you're starting to beat up on that email list, on that SMS list, on your loyal lists, and they get tired of opening your emails. Yeah. And then
I know you know this. You're a retention. Right? You're a retention person for years. And then I know there was somebody you were working with a couple of years ago that was just
horrible. Yeah.
Their list.
And they tend to, and then what I've seen businesses do over and over again when email and SMS stops performing is let's do sales. Let's do flash sales. Let's do site-wide sales. Let's do email-only sales. Well, that will have such a negative long-term effect if you're constantly pushing sale after sale after sale. Your customer will get so used to seeing that discount percentage that they won't even interact until they're ready to buy. Again,
yep.
They will just you're not offering them anything special because now you've trained them to look for those discounts. So I think especially in times of uncertainty, if you do cut your acquisition marketing efforts, if that's not a decision we recommend you make, but if you do make it, be conscious of what you do on the retention side because it can have long-term negative effects, especially if you're running sales after sales. I've seen that. Yeah. I've seen many brands bury themselves that way.
Yeah. I ask brands this. And again, look, obviously, we like people to pay us.
Indeed, we do.
I use that money, like I said, to feed myself and pay bills. Like, I like it. I like getting money from people for this.
Fair.
So I'm a fan of people who want to do it. But if you don't, and say, you're a business like that grew there's word of mouth businesses, right? Sure. Like mom and pop, service-based businesses, word of mouth referrals, and they've never done it. So they're going to be okay. They're not turning up or down. But if you've marketed and you're starting to do that, now you want to back away from that. What are you going to fill that in with? You have to replace that activity with something.
Right.
Because, there were all those impressions that came with it. There's those clicks that come with this stuff. There's the website traffic that you are generating through these activities that bring people into your funnel who hopefully turn into revenue. Now you're going to shut that funnel down. What are you replacing it with? You better increase some other activity then. And if you don't want to spend, then your organic activities had better start increasing. And if you're going to rely on organic social media and replace that, good luck.
We already did an episode about this with people claiming that they're leaving Meta. It's like, okay, if you were leaving Meta for paid, where are you going? And if there was a place to go, why didn't we go there already?
Why weren't you already there?
Yeah. It's really just, I think for small businesses, especially those that rely on, having to import goods, I think it's more important that you figure out your logistics and your operations rather than you cutting marketing. Cutting it in half, cutting it completely, any percentage of that is going to be hard to recover. I mean, I always go back to this like warm up of ads on Facebook, right? It's what we've heard for like over a decade now. Or you launch an ad, oh, it takes time to learn, right? It takes time to warm up. It takes time to learn. Imagine, that takes what, weeks, Mike? I mean, I'm not an expert on the paid side, certainly, but that takes a few weeks. And then you cut that off. And then let's say 30 days later, you're like, okay, I'm good. Budget is back. Let's do this again. You're starting almost from zero all over again.
Yeah.
Which,
and
why would you want to do that?
Competition now.
Yeah.
And if you do this on Meta, on any platform, if you pull back as something else fills in, and it might not even necessarily be a competitor, but you are helping your competitors because your competitors are out there running ads on those platforms against the same audience you are. And even if you're doing Audience Plus or, Advantage shopping on Google or anything, those algorithms are all aiming you and your businesses at the same people. You backed off. And now you also have the added benefit of helping lower the costs for your competition because there are less people competing. So you're helping your competitors
benefit
as well. Something else will fill in. And even if it's not a competitor, your potential customers are out there existing in the world and they're being bombarded by all kinds of things. They're unlikely to even notice that you have disappeared because you had to do that level of marketing to be seen enough to be remembered, even so that when somebody was ready to purchase, they thought of you. Now, when you're gone, you're just gone. You're out of sight, out of mind. It's not like anyone's like, hey, you know who I haven't seen? It's like when you're on Facebook. I'm an old guy, so when Facebook started changing the algorithms and your friends and your stuff, you're like, hey, there's a friend of mine I've not seen. Did they disappear? And then you just go and click on them. You're like, no, they're still here and they're active. I wonder why I don't see them, right? Like, but you stop thinking about them.
Right.
And when you disappear as a business, I just don't understand how you think revenue comes from this idea of pulling out of the market space. Where's revenue going to come from? You're in a crisis. You're not sure what's going to happen. The best thing to do, you think, is to stop telling people to buy from you? No, that is definitely not going to fix any problems.
And I think this landscape that we're in right now is very interesting because there is so much uncertainty. And I think what prompted this conversation for us to begin with is, like you said, we had someone tell us like, hey, we're not going to do marketing efforts for now because we don't know what's going to happen to our business. And this is an interesting thing too, I think, and we've been through this in several businesses we've been in. You have to pivot when times are like uncertain. So you have to have, what is your plan to how flexible is your business to pivot to where the customer is, to also not run away from, let's say you're having shipping issues. Like this has happened for not last year, but I think last few years prior, especially around COVID. Shipping delays were everywhere, right? So like your marketing, great, you're getting sales, great, but then stuff is just not getting to the customers in time and it's a disaster. And we're always like, hey, face any customer service issue head on, right? Like address it immediately. Don't sugarcoat it too much. Don't BS the customer, right? Just tell them straight up what's going on. And I think this is, where a lot of businesses didn't pivot, didn't address the customers, didn't think that they needed to evolve as a business during the pandemic. We've seen so many businesses close, like JCPenney was one that we mentioned. Borders was another one, where we now see this like resurgence of bookstores like Barnes and Nobles is always packed. Borders just went out of business because they didn't, day two during the pandemic decided they weren't really going to invest in marketing efforts and they didn't want to invest into digital resources for ebooks, right? So essentially, Amazon Kindle and Barnes and Noble's Nook just wiped them out of business.
Right.
So
Blockbuster didn't pivot.
Kodak, like Blockbuster to
Kodak, right?
Netflix
Lots
and all
of big
that stuff.
examples of people.
Yeah, but I'm just, I'm just thinking like,
made there.
Even during the
thinking ahead and
you have to be thinking
ahead. This is why,
like,
you shouldn't be so invested in one social media platform. You should not be so invested in one if you're running paid Social media paid
In one
ads, you should
channel.
not be so invested in one platform there or one revenue stream.
Right.
You have to be able to diversify how people
Yeah.
are coming into your business because you cannot rely on any one thing because all of them can be taken away from you
Yeah. And we've just
at
seen that
any
with
moment. You
TikTok
just don't
too.
know.
But I
Whatever
think
you're
like,
doing, if SEO has worked for you, you know, Google makes an update and now it doesn't work for you. HubSpot just saw
right.
that, right? Like Google
Yep.
makes a change in what their blog rules are and your content. And if you were great at that and you were getting traffic from that, Google can change it at any time. So there's no guarantees. Even if you're like, no, we don't worry about social media and paid ads. We're in SEO. We generate our own traffic. Like, yeah, look, Google controls that, and
Yeah.
they'll you know
And you
they'll
never know
get you
what's going to
anytime.
happen.
Panda and Penguin got me years and
Yeah.
years ago. Those two updates, you know,
Oh God,
years
that's a
ago when the
throwback,
Midwest
Mike.
TV guys, Penguin killed us.
That's a
But
throwback.
But I mean, anyone, and that's the thing is you just cannot rely overly on one thing. And businesses, we see this small to mid-size, and you start growing, and you had this one thing that started working, and then you will
Mhm.
lean into that because this is where we're at, and this is what's working. So let's like maximize this, and then to the detriment of anything else.
Yeah. And
And
I
then you
think,
get times like this, like
yeah,
the thing I too like we're talking about these volatile times. There
right.
are always volatile times. It's
True
always.
story.
There's always something.
There is always something. And
You never you
I do
own a
think,
business, it's never smooth. You know this. Like anyone
right.
who's owned and run a business, every day it's some kind of a fire like, all right, especially in the early years, like your first 5 years, like, hey, what's got a good chance of putting me out of business today? You know?
Yeah. I mean, it's just, I think that's the thing though. We keep kind of in every conversation we've had, we keep circling back to, be consistent with your efforts, right? Diversify your marketing efforts, but don't get rid of marketing. That is a terrible idea. If you need to pivot, look at the stats of your channels, right? Like look where you can maximize. If you need to cut something down, look what else you can do to make up for that traffic and know that your short-term pivots like this that cut out marketing efforts have long-term effects. I mean, we talked about this, I think in another I don't know if we mentioned it, but I know we talk about it amongst ourselves a lot. Somebody needs to see you 8 different times before they interact with you, right? That's the average. So if you cut your marketing, the chances of them seeing you often are like slim to none. Don't
Right.
don't panic. That's the thing. I think businesses panic, right? Like now it's all this talk about tariffs and all this talk about shipping times and getting like how long is something going to take to get imported from overseas and what are the impacts? And it's like I understand the concern, but also don't panic don't panic to a point where you run your own business into the ground, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Like keep things moving, keep things going. If you have to pivot your audience, if you have to talk about why your new line of product is late for launch or something, maybe pivot, make it a different launch event, do something different. Just don't not do anything, if that makes sense. It's like a double
I
negative.
think
Sorry on that one.
I think from a philosophical standpoint and right from the beginning, even before you ever run into trouble, more businesses should be far more worried about what they do with their fixed costs and their
Right,
operational expenses than you're ever really worried about your marketing. Of course, monitor, manage marketing, work on the
right,
things that maximize the ROI on your spend,
right.
but you need to make sure that you're always protected in that hey, if sales, like you can't always count on sales always happening the way they have been. And even if you have 5 years of history, it does not guarantee you anything tomorrow.
No,
So that
correct.
big fancy new office you want to buy, all this computer equipment, the 8 people in HR you want to hire, how would you spin any of this down
Yeah.
if your sales went away tomorrow, something happens? Because then you're like, well, I can't get out of my lease, so I got to cut marketing spend. That's the only thing I can do. I just brought on 7 new people in HR and 14 new purchasers. I can't do anything about that. I got my one person in marketing. I'm going to go tell them, got to cut your budget, man.
And it happens
You need to make
so
do with
often.
more.
It's ridiculous. I can't
I,
with how often that
and I've
happens.
learned that lesson the painful way too. And Now it's, I will be even as our business that we're growing here, as we are beginning to grow a bit, I will be very leery about overhead expenses.
Cost. Oh gosh, yeah. And especially, I think that's another thing though too. I actually posted a video on our Instagram stories last night of a guy who did a reel that like he's like, oh look, I'm the business owner and I'm the shipper and I am the purchaser and I am, and he's just filming himself and all these different things that he's running. He's running his whole business by himself. And that's the thing though too. It's like run your business lean, look at your operational costs. Don't go crazy on those things because like you said, Mike, it's just, like look at your whole business, like the health of your business holistically. Don't beat up marketing over expenses that you could have avoided or prevented. And especially now, digital age, I don't like, I know I keep saying this. I'm never going back into an office to work, right? So I'm sure at some point we'll have an office. I just don't know that I'll be there a lot, Mike.
Yeah.
But, it's really honestly, it's just this type of stuff where like if you can if you can keep your business lean, then in times of crisis, you'll never have to cut marketing. It will never have to come to that where that is the emergency go-to solution to, be cash flow positive. So.
It's tough. I know.
Yeah.
But that's some good stuff there. All right. Hey, everybody. So the takeaway is, and this is from marketing people, we're totally not biased at all. Don't cut your marketing. What are you doing?
No, not
if you made
biased.
it to this point, we're 22 minutes in. You're not still here listening.
Somebody might be. Lance will be.
Matt. Thanks, Matt. Matt, I know you're still here.
Yep. Matt listens. Lance listens. Yeah. Alex, we'll get there. Mike, come on.
We say in our intro that we have fans by the several. We're not lying.
We're on episode 8, so we're almost halfway to our 20, which is exciting.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, we're getting there. Well, we're going to have some guests coming up, so follow us.
We got some more guests.
Yep.
Hopefully you listened to the last one with one of our guests, and I know. Very exciting.
Good stuff.
Okay. If you're not one of those people who was named and you actually want to get named,
leave us a comment.
Or do something. Engage, interact, say something.
Yep.
Then we'll name you. If you don't want to be named or associated with it, I get that too.
Yeah.
But if you made it this far, thank you. That's another wrap on an episode. That's a wrap. That's inside language.
Yeah. All right.
We're very professional. So make sure, hey, if you got this far, if you watched us on YouTube, we're also available on Spotify. You can check out the Cynical Marketers website to learn some more if you want. But find us on YouTube. We got shorts. We're on TikTok. We put some stuff out as we continue to expand this and we get better at this. We're learning too as we go. So
good times.
We appreciate it. But thanks again, everybody, for tuning in. We will see you again next week. Have a good week, everybody.